Hello everyone. We have been discussing the second module of B.Sc. first year English for Communication Technology with Human Face. The present essay is written by E.F. Schumacher, who is an economist, and he here gives the significance of the new concept technology with human face, which will help us to save ourselves from the different crises when excessive technologies are used in the limited nature. In the beginning, he talks about how nature and technology are different from each other and what kind of crisis nowadays rich as well as poor countries are facing. The problems like unemployment, poverty has been increased in the countries which are more developed rather than underdeveloped countries. He gives a proportion how the leisure giving machines give very less leisure to us when they are excessively used. When every work is given to the machines, it gives less comfort and more stress. And what is the solution for this is that the technology with human face. He gives the example of Thomas Aquinas and definition of him proves that man is some kind of a creature who uses his brain to live. But nowadays, he writer argues that we are not using our brain or creativity anywhere when we are completely dependent on technology. Again, he talks about technology. He really has a very to be rich enough to need. He says that how man nowadays living in the present situation. He says, today a person has a wealthy to be able to enjoy this simple thing, this very great luxury. He has to be able to afford space, good tools, and he has to be lucky enough to find a good teacher and plenty of free time to learn and practice. He really has to be rich enough, need not to a great job for number of jobs that would be satisfactory in these respects and very small ended. Nowadays, if someone has money, if someone has space and certain tools with him, then only that a man can get a proper job and his business can also work properly. But if he doesn't have any kind of things with him and he is only creative, then nothing can help him. So he needs economic background for developing his own creativity. The extent to which modern technology has taken over the work of human hands may be illustrated as follows. We may ask how much of total social time, that is to say, the time all of us have together, that is 24 hours each day, is actually engaged in real production. So he says that real production is that where man actually uses his brain, when he is not dependent on machine or he is not operating any machine. He actually himself involves in a particular activity. He uses his own body, uses his own brain for bringing change and bringing some good creation in the society. Rather less than one half of the total population of this country is, as they say, gainfully occupied, and about one third of these is actual producers in agriculture, mining, construction, and industry. I do mean actual producers, not only who tell others people what to do or account for the past or plan for the future or distribute what other people have produced. In other words, rather than less than one sixth of the total population is engaged in actual production. On average, each of them supports five other besides himself, of which two are gainfully employed or things that real production and three are not gainfully employed. Now, fully employed person, allowing for holidays, sickness, and other absence, spends about one fifth of his total time on his job. It follows the proportion of total social time spent on actual production. In narrow sense, in which I am using the term, is roughly one fifth of one third of one half the other 96.5% of total social time is spent in other ways. That means 96.5% of total social time is spent in other things, and only 3.5% of the time is spent in actual production. He also gives the example of actual production, and here he describes the concept of total social time. It means that the time of everyone, and only 3.5% of everyone's time is spent in actual work. Again, he says, although this bit of figuring work need to be taken to literally, it quite adequately serves to show what technology has enabled us to do, namely to reduce the elementary sense to such a teeny percentage of total social time. It pales into significance, that is, carries no real weight, it alone prestige. When you look at industrial society in this way, you cannot be surprised to find what prestige it is carried by those who help fill out other 96.5% of total social time, primarily the entertainers but also executors of Parkinson's law. In fact, one must put the following proportion to the student sociology. The prestige carried by people in modern industrial society varies in inverse proportion to their closeness to the actual production. So there is inverse proportional relationship between the prestige carried by the people who are living in the modern society to their actual production. Means more they are prestigious, less they are away from the actual production. This is the law of Parkinson. So he carries these sentences, and here he properly describes what is exactly total social time, where man uses his own brain and body for the production and he remains productive. That is called as the total social time. So what kind of people we are nowadays? He gives a very nice definition of today's man. He says that we all are from the factory, a man who has become completely empty. And we have very nice relatively same poem by T.S. Eliot, where he talks about the today's degraded man in his poetry, The Wasteland. It has been said that dead matter goes out improved, whereas men are corrupted and degraded. म्हणजे here we see that